All right, we're here at Legal Week 2019 with the editor-in-chief of the American Lawyer, someone who I've been reading for quite a while now, and in fact, I'll get into it, actually facilitated the partnership between Reply All and ALM, which I'm really excited about. Gina Passarella, we are excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm super pumped to be here. This is really legit and fancy. This is a nice little break from the panel discussions I have going on downstairs.
So, okay, I can't tell if it's that I've been in legal longer, so now I'm more attuned to it, or if this year is just a really busy year in terms of news. This feels like a lot.
The last 2 days is really busy in terms of news. I don't know what's going on. There is a lot happening right now.
There is a lot happening, and thank you, Paul Weiss, for giving us even more to talk about.
I know. You know it's busy when the general circ pubs start really getting in. Like the New York Times is going to be writing about legal diversity, and you know that's when things have kind of hit, right? That does not happen. So things have hit a fevered pitch on some topics, particularly diversity, as you mentioned, but a lot of other stuff too.
There's a lot of stuff going on. How are you prioritizing all these stories? Because I'll just give you just a couple, right off the bat. So CS Disco raising $83 million, and now topping even Relativity, which disclosure has been a Reply All sponsor for years, so I want to get that on the table. But they've now even topped Relativity in the amount that they've raised. That was a really big story. As I mentioned, Gravity Stack is the sponsor of the podcast, but worth mentioning, last week y'all did a story on Gravity Stack and Reed Smith and doing the first sort of law firm to law firm tech sale with McCarthy's in Canada, which was an extraordinary milestone. And we've got Baker McKenzie hiring all my friends.
I know.
We got a lot going on. I'm just curious, how do you prioritize all of this, especially in a week where y'all would have been happy with one or two big legal stories,
and then days,
as if it wasn't enough already, Paul Weiss jumps in and is like, "Hey, we're just gonna hire a bunch of white dudes and make them all partner because we're totally tone deaf." And I'm torn about that, and I want to get into that, but let's start with that. How do you prioritize?
Sure. So
stories?
Luckily, it's not me that has to do all the prioritizing. So it's easy from my perspective. No, we have a really great team, and I think our reorganization as a company 2 years ago set us up really well to handle all of those issues you're talking about. So no longer are we organized by individual publications in discrete markets. We're now a global newsroom that has theme desks that cover areas of focus. So technology, business of law, in-house counsel, regulatory, culture, what have you. And so we have expertise across any industry audience segment that you can imagine, and they can jump on it, and we can also work together, and because all of these things interconnect more and more.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that because obviously I'm in the legal industry very much, and it's a big part of what my company does. Yeah. But at the same time, we started off as a publishing and media company, and what I've seen happen is a major market correction in publishers. For a while there, all you were hearing was Vox, Mike, BuzzFeed, social media. Everyone's going to have to adjust. And I think what we've seen is the opposite. A lot of those trends turn out to be fads.
Yeah.
And publishers have reorganized and kind of rethought through the model and what it is they need to provide to be differentiated, because content is a free commodity online. So how do you provide something that people are willing to pay for? And y'all have thought about that quite a bit, and really geared your newsroom around that. And it just feels right now like I'm getting 99% of my news on the industry right now from ALM reporters, and I think a lot of it has to do with that reorganization and a market correction. I even think we're going to see a comeback of print, and I know I think
I say it all the time internally. I get a lot of eye rolls, but there's something to be said, and it's even true. I've read of millennial generation who. Magazines are cool, particularly magazines. I mean, you can do so much with them. It's fun, but I won't make that argument in full here. But I will very much thank you for that kind of vote of confidence in us, because I think regardless of the medium that it's presented in, one thing that we've really focused on first of all, people pay a lot of money to read our content because it's highly specialized content and we need to deliver to them all the time.
And
so
very often they're using it for research, not just news.
Exactly. So to that point, we're backing it up with data from our ALM intelligence unit more and more. We're lawyers like to see numbers. It's one of the things that can help affect change because otherwise they just sometimes pretend that things aren't happening.
Right.
But I mean, for us, it's all about what can we do to help you succeed in your business? How can we tell you where the market is headed? And how can we provide the insight, not just what happened, but why it's happening, how it happened, and what does it mean for your business or the industry as a whole? And that takes a lot of work and boots on the ground, and there's so much data that goes into it, but it's also that human intelligence. So yes, we're organized as this global newsroom, but we do have boots on the ground in cities all around the world. And so we're talking to the people who are doing the cool, innovative things and gaining their trust and getting the stories as a result.
And I have to tell you, there were times over the last few years where I wondered if, forgetting legal, I wondered if publishers like that could even continue to exist. And I'm glad that there's been a comeback because the state of content on the internet over the last 3 or 4 years has been a declining one. It's not been empowering. It's actually put out more bad content and it's hard to sift through.
Sure.
But I think like we're seeing a comeback. I was mentioning to Tom Lariniga, there's a conversation in House of Cards. You watched House of Cards?
I've seen a little bit of it.
So then the first season, there's a conversation between this the head of this of what's supposed to be the Washington Post and the editor-in-chief of the Washington Post. And the editor-in-chief of the Washington Post is saying, listen, all these fads, social media, Twitter, they're just that. They're fads. And when they all die down, when they all kind of melt away, the only thing that's going to be left is real news.
Right.
And that's what I'm focused on. And I'm really pleased. I'm not I don't have like Schadenfreude for BuzzFeed
No.
or any of these publications, but I am really happy to see what looks like the reemergence of reputable publishers.
Right. Well, I mean, even in my mind, it doesn't matter the medium. It doesn't matter if it's on social media or what have you. Yes, we need to speak to our readers where they are and meet them where they are, but it's good stories sell, for lack of a better term. People want to know good, interesting stories that they can't get anywhere else, or that give them the perspective that they can't get anywhere else. It's not rocket science. And so that's particularly true when you're mentioning all of the things that are happening in legal tech news this week. I mean, deciphering what is innovative, what is really news, that's a big piece of what we have to do. So we just have to tell the stories that people want to read and can't get.
And speaking of innovative, we have an industry leader who walked in the room. I'm interviewing him next, but I'll save it. But I want to get back to that point because one of my laments on legal tech, and I'm glad that Legal Tech News has Zach Warren covering these issues responsibly, is there's been hype that I think has actually hurt the legal tech companies over the last few years. There were, and I'm partly guilty of it myself, so I'm not excusing myself in the way that we wrote about this.
Well, we all are when we're trying to figure out what this means because it's new. So how do we know what impact it's going to have? Exactly.
So I think it's guys, sit please. We have real innovators walking in the door.
I know.
So
I need to get out of this chair.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one of the trends that I'm very interested in from your perspective is what it means to be an innovative law firm. So you and I talked about this last year, and I was asking you, what was the move of the year, and you said it's Kirkland. They made the move to Houston. They decided Houston is where we need to be, and I was just talking with Roy. And in a certain sense, that's really an innovative law firm. I don't know what contract review system they were using. Right. And we're sponsored by Heretik here, so I guess let's give them a plug. But my point is, I don't think the success of Kirkland or not had that much to do with what contract review software they were using, whether they hired LPMs. What does it mean to you today to be an innovative law firm? Who do you count among the innovators?
Well, that's a good question. So let me say that Kirkland, for example, is probably a unique example. I think there's going to be people within that firm that would tell you that they don't need to worry about a lot of the innovative stuff because there are pockets of the market, and I'm never saying that firms don't have to change. I think every firm of any type needs to make some adjustments as the market evolves. But there are pockets of the market that the clients come to them for their expertise, and their expertise is bar none, and they're hiring the right people, and it doesn't matter what else they do. They can get away with being a little less innovative. And then there are other firms who are doing more unique things in terms of how they deliver services. I think for me, what's truly innovative is not about what technology you pick or an individual that you hire to run things. It really needs to be a comprehensive, I don't want to say revamp, but a real deep look at your entire law firm processes. So it has to be pricing, staffing, hiring, the types of clients that you're bringing in, the way that you're billing. I mean, you just need to look at every process within your firm and tweak them all a little bit if you want to make meaningful change, because you can't just add a software and think something's going to happen.
How are firms going to do that? That's an incredible undertaking.
Yeah,
I mean, how many David Cambria, JM, and Casey Flaherty's are there to go around to look through all of this? I mean, even if you could figure out what that undertaking required, how would you then even, who is the talent that you would bring in to do that? How are they going to persuade the firm? That's a serious challenge.
It's huge, and I've argued before that I think the partnership model in and of itself is a big inhibitor to a lot of this change. I mean, it doesn't really lend itself well to restructuring things.
Right.
And there's been a lot of arguments that you're going to need spin-offs in order to make this successful. It's going to have to be a whole new firm cut from new cloth in order to really affect change. Other people say it's just a generational shift. The next generation coming up, it's by nature going to happen.
Yeah, I always wonder, I forget if it's the goblins or some kind of creature. But I remember in Harry Potter, when they have to go get their gold. Yeah. It's handled by this kind of antique system. And I don't know why I find that so relatable, but I think within law firms, sometimes when it comes to mitigating our risk, we want to go to the goblins. We want to go to the people that keep a ledger and have to dust it off, and they're very particular and they have their way of doing things. And I think that, a GC has to get, comfortable with the idea of hey, listen, I need to be able to sleep at night.
Right.
And by paying these guys, I feel pretty good about that.
Well, you touched on, I think, an issue that's come up just in the last 2 days in the news related to diversity, which is the role of the general counsel in affecting this change. Yeah. And so, the law firms can only do so much, but I hear all the time firms say, this is the same thing I'm sure you've heard a million times, which is, oh, well, I've presented this unique idea, but the client turned it down.
Right. So, what was Paul Weiss thinking? did they not, think that was going to, I refuse. That's a smart firm. They cannot have what were they thinking? Have you spoken to people there?
I have. I mean, I haven't done the reporting on it that some of my colleagues have, but I have. I mean, I think they thought that they were elevating 12. I think it was very eligible people, and I don't know that anybody would argue that those people weren't the deserving of partnership. But I feel bad for some of those people too, by the way. I mean, that's one of the they've been striving for this, my guess is, for the last 10 or 13 years of their career. They finally achieve this, and then it's tainted. Right. I feel bad for them too, but I just kind of wonder I think you could swap in any law firm name into that spot and have a similar story for most of the firms. Have a lot of firms in the last couple of years done a lot to diversify their partnership classes? Yes, but on the whole, I don't think that Paul Weiss is unique in that sense. So I think it's a broader industry problem, and I think that's what that GC letter that came out over the weekend urging firms to diversify their partnership ranks or lose business is.
So I know one head of legal ops, and can't mention, who's leading a charge and coming up with tools to assess that. And then very publicly in an interview last year I did with Matt Lepore, the general counsel of BASF, he said he's built a tool to assess diversity of outside panels, one that he's happy to share with anyone who wants it.
Well,
so to your point, I think the GC is going to lead that conversation, and they probably have better chance to influence those decisions.
But it's funny, I wrote a column yesterday that I've heard this before, right? So we've heard these letters before since 1999. GCs have been writing letters of calling on firms to diversify, and it hasn't changed yet. So I've asked kind of what's going to change this. I do think there are some elements here targeting specifically partner promotions, where if you're looking at firms, who are you going to let into to have a piece of your pie? That could make a difference. And there's an African American partner who wrote us a letter today that we'll publish tomorrow saying, I call BS on this. I think these GCs are not helping the cause. They say all this in a letter. They've never called me asking me to work on their matters, and this person is very well pedigreed. So there's some debate in that about how much GCs are affecting change.
Interesting. So I'm getting the look from Rachel that I have to wrap up because you've got to go back to panels. Quickly before you leave,
Sure.
Talk to me about the other panels that we're going to be seeing on ALM this year.
Mm-hmm.
As a backstory, you really helped facilitate this new partnership between ReplyAll and ALM.
Yes.
And I followed the first conversation like appointment viewing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great for me because these insights that I'm getting from these conversations are fascinating. I have a lot of thoughts on some of the things that Heather had to say,
Mm-hmm.
but what other kind of conversations can we expect on ALM over the course of the year as part of this new partnership?
I don't know. I'm so excited about it too. I have to say that. I think this is great. It gives us a chance to talk about the things that we love to talk about, and really I'm all about, if you hear me up at the Business of Law Forum today and tomorrow, I'm all about connecting our various audience segments and not having people just talk over one another in the pages of our publications. So these conversations do exactly that. And you're going to hear a lot more about technology, certainly, but we're going to be talking about the AmLaw 100 and 200 and where firm financials are, diversity in law firms.
That'll be a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit more about that. The global issues. There are just so many different topics that we're looping in. So
I'm thrilled about it. We're thrilled about it. I think it's going to be really a net good for legal, which is exciting. My thank you to you for helping facilitate that. And thanks for coming and hanging out. I know you're super busy this week.
Everyone, this is the fun part of my
everyone
day.
wants a part of Gina during Legal Week. So
this is great. I so appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.